configuration changes, and it also helps us update state to our UI based on how state is being updated from the say a local source or a remote source. So how do you do that first? First of all, you create a class and call it like your desired view model. Like here, since I was trying to to get data, pets data. Get pets data, and then you have to extend the view model class, which is also, yeah, you have to extend the view model class, which is like it's not like it is a lifecycle library, which helps manage lifecycle, your app's lifecycle. It's usually mostly out of the box, but sometimes you need to add like a dependency to your libs.version file. So it's usually this lifecycle, the lifecycle view model, compose, which you need to add as a dependency if you do not have it already, so that you can be able to extend that view model class to your view model. And then after that, you have to use you have to create the states that you have to access the states that you, or manage the states that you'd like to have on your UI. But first, you need to like model how you'd like your states to be, and that you do that in like a can either do it in a data class or a sealed class or a sealed interface. And mostly when you're modeling your UI states, especially if it's data from a remote source, I normally narrow down to say 3 states, which is a loading state, because data needs to be loaded first before it's emitted, because sometimes it's you need to load that data first. And then there's this pet state, or it could be a success state, where you like, which is of type list, and it takes in like the cat data, and in its initial it's usually you can initialize it to an empty list, or mostly an empty list. And then there's usually an error state. Say if there's an error, you encounter an error when you're loading data from this from a source which is of type string, and initial value null. So after modeling your UI state, then you go to the view model where you manage that state. So first of all, you need to declare what do you call it? You need to declare like a variable that can only be used, that an immutable variable that can only be used here, and and you have to use like a mutable state flow, because this is so that you can be able to get like the latest data. So mutable state flow helps you get the latest data from the UI, and also ensures that you have like your app is more reactive and it's always up to date. And then you have to like declare another variable which you can use to access data access data from the as in to access your view model. And you also have to use a state flow as well, which is an observer. There's also another observer called like data, but I'll not dig into that. And then you also have to like define a function which you'd like to use to where your business logic will lie, and where you'll where you'll update your states. So first you'll update, maybe you'll want to have a business logic on what should happen when you have a successful operation. So if you have a successful operation, what would you want it to show? You want it first to stop. Okay, first of all, there's this initial value where the UI state has to load fast. And then if your network operation is successful, the loading will stop. So you do that by using a false boolean, and then after that you'd like that data to be emitted to your screen. And in case if there's an error when you're loading data, you'd like that loading state to be turned off or to be false, and then maybe show a user that, well, based on the message that you'll have configured, maybe you may have like not a configured message. Maybe you'd like the user to see what exactly the error is, maybe based on what the network error is, or sometimes the network error message may be difficult for a normal user to understand because they do not know what exactly that message mean, because it could be maybe an error 500 and they do not know what an error 500 means. So you as a developer, you need to know how to the kind of message you need to show on the screen based on the error message that you may get from a network, or from a network. So, and also to access and also the way that to access maybe data from a model, you need to pass in the data model. And here I used a repository, which is also like a bridge between like the data source and the view model. So the repository is normally used to like interact with the UI layer. So you pass it as a parameter in your view model class. And then after that, how do you get to access the view model to your UI state or to your UI screen? Sorry. First of all, you need to initialize your view model, and you can initialize it based on say the dependency injection that you're using. The dependency injection library you're using. And for me, I used Coin dependency. I used Coin as my preferred library for dependency injection. And then how do you access the UI state? This is how you get to access your UI state. And then you also need to access your function that holds the operations that need to be the operations that are needed so that data can be so that the different states can be emitted on your screen, say a loading state or the error message if the state has, or say if there's a problem loading data from a source, and in this case it's a remote source, and also maybe emit data if the operation was successful. And then after that, you can either initialize the function in a launched in effects, or there's also another way where you can initialize your function so you can be able to so that you can be able to say view data or access the states, as in access the states which are being provided by the view model to your UI. So let's say if you have like a private function here, you can either do this and then you initialize it in an init block. So you can either do this if you're using a private function, you need to use an init block to initialize the function. And if you're using, if you're not using a private, or say if you're using a public function, you can initialize it in a launched effect. So you can be able to see the data that's being emitted on your screen. Yeah, so I think I'll remove this because we've already used this. But those are the two ways that you can access your function from your ViewModel function. And also, another thing that I'd like to mention is sometimes, say the observers that you use could affect how your states will be emitted on your screen. So I'd like to maybe share an experience that I had when I was working on a project, and a different what is it? ViewModel. Yeah. So a different kind of observer was used, where there was like a channel. Okay, to be honest, I am not sure what this channel is, but it's a project that I was working on with a colleague, and he used this, which was kind of strange to me. And then how the states were being handled were kind of were not like the right way of handling states, because if you're handling a state, you need to update it first. Let me see. So there's this, you need to update it and then provide a copy for it, so that you can be able, so that you can be able to manage your states well. And the problem with this is, okay, after this, he provided that, or accessed the ViewModel like this, and initialized and provided like an initial state, which is not like a correct way to provide your states to your UI, because this state should be handled in the ViewModel. It doesn't need to be provided in the screen again, because the problem with this was, say if I was navigating to a different screen and then coming back to the initial screen, I ended up finding that I could not, like, the data or the states were not being emitted correctly, because I was losing the data that I was supposed to see there. So then that's how I figured out that you when you're managing your state, you need like manage it in a correct way, so that you cannot have such kind of bugs, or you can, as in your app can respond, or your states can be emitted as they should, and not have bugs in it. Because the problem with this is, again, I remembered the initial state here was already defined as an empty list. So whenever I'd go back to that screen, it would show like an empty list of data. It wouldn't show any data at all. So that is why there was like an error. Okay, I don't know, I've been talking too much. And maybe I think at this point is where I'd like to hear maybe some of the experiences you've had when you're working with view models. Is using sealed interface for states a good practice? Yeah, it is a good practice to use sealed interface. Yeah, because that it will help you when you're doing pattern matching, especially when you're using like a when statement. It will only use the states that you've defined, and it will not require you to like have like an else block when you're maybe managing your states. Yeah, so you'll only be able to pattern match or use the states that are already there. So if it's If it's a loading state, you'll only have the loading state, the success state, and the error state. So yeah, it is recommended to use like a sealed interface or a sealed class. Yeah. Using sealed interface are useful for state. Yes, yes, they are. They are useful for state management. Oh yeah, and Mambo was like update state and then yes, yes, that is how you do it. Like I mentioned, you need to use the dot update and then add your values in there. Yeah, as opposed to using this other version of it. Yeah, so this is the correct way. Use the update. Uh, you need to update it and then provide a copy. Any other question? Or I see you are using a data class. What are the situations to use data class and a sealed interface? Oh wait, there's this other one. I think you can use either a data class or a sealed interface, depending on how you'd like to manage your states. But I'd also like someone maybe to chip in and say maybe what is more beneficial when you're using between a data class and a sealed interface or a sealed class. On a single view model, single state flow are multiple state flow. Okay, Isaac, I do not understand what you're asking really. So maybe you could, what is the difference between state flow and live data? Okay, I'm not sure what the difference is. I think I'd like someone to chip in and say what the difference between a state flow and live data is, but they are both observables. You can use both of them to like observe data from the view model. Or wait, on a single view model, single state flow or multiple state flow? Multiple state flow. I still don't understand. Yeah, someone can answer what the difference between a state flow and data and live data is, and also what are the situations to use a data class and a sealed interface. And can chip in. What is the question? In a situation where you want to modify your error message, where do you handle it? View model or data layer? Where you want to modify your message? It's a good question. I think what we have done that mostly is on the data layer. Yeah, that's where I like modify my error messages mostly. So I'm guessing Stateflow is a bit more reactive. Yes, more like how RX Java was, not reactive as much. But yeah, but Stateflow ensures that your data is managed in a more reactive way. Yeah, still someone to answer Hezekiah on situations to use data class and sealed interfaces. Oh, you're asking, I talked of UDF. UDF it's a design pattern where data is managed is where data is being say if you want, as in state normally goes in one direction and the event goes in a different direction, to ensure that at least data is not being managed from different points, but like if state needs to go to the view model, it will like go, it will as in where it's basically state flowing in one direction and the event flowing in a different direction. But let me research for you that. Okay, someone else asked, between coin and dagger hilt, which is better? I see you've used coin. Preference. I can't say what is better than the other. For me, I prefer using coin because it's easier, and I do not like annotations. They do not make sense to me mostly, so I chose to go the coin way. Not that they do not have annotations, they do. I saw that they do have annotations, but they do not have yeah, so there's nothing better than the other. Yeah, and also coin supports KMP if you want to use, if you want to venture into KMP in future. And also it's more of platform specific as opposed to uh, Hilt, because Hilt you can only use in applications that you can only use it in Android. But if you say you want to share the same business logic in maybe a different platform, it will not be as easy. So yeah. There's a question someone is asking. I don't know if I've left anyone behind. Anyway, Nancy's asking, with actions, under what circumstances should someone use cases? I am not sure about that. I have not used use cases before because I have not worked on an application that needed or required me to use a use case, and also as be like having boilerplate code based on what somebody like a repetitive of what you've already done in your repository. But not that they are bad. If you have like if you require to use, prefer not to use them because I have not found a reason for me to use use cases at this point. Well, yes, it's use cases are used in the new clean architecture. Sometimes about something about MVP. I'm not sure though. Yeah, well, yeah, they say it's part, but I haven't found like a reason as to why I need to use cases at this point. But yeah, you can research more on that. Mm, use cases for specific domain, specific business logic. Yes, yes, they can be good, but depends on project nature, the nature of your project. Yeah, so you don't need to use cases. You can use them only if your project requires you to use it. Because if you use it in there are some projects that may not require you to use cases, because it might end up being like a repeat of what you've already done in your repository. So yeah, think that is based on the no using the saved state. Sorry, let me see. Um, okay. What is the best way to load data based on a property like ID that is not known when the model is initialized? Okay, I'm not really sure what Wallis is asking, but if anyone else is able to answer that question, please feel free to answer it. And then Wallace Otieno, if the ID is being passed as a navigation argument, you can get it. Oh yeah, so this is Wallace Segun Francis responding to Wallace. Okay, so use cases are not mandatory, depends on your, yes.